Right now on Upfront.
The blame game.
The administration has the funding.
Tempers flare in Washington, day 33 of the federal government shutdown.
And we've tried to do that 13 times. You voted no 13 times.
Federal food assistance halted, 700,000 impacted in Wisconsin.
They do have money they should be using.
We're not going to be held hostage.
This Sunday, our exclusives, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Republican Congressman Derek Van Orden.
Then, Wisconsin voters.
The striking thing is each party blames the other overwhelmingly and sees their side as doing nothing wrong.
The new Marquette Law School poll, who's to blame for the shutdown and the new numbers in the race for governor. Marquette Law School poll director Charles Franklin with the new analysis just moments away.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The stakes dramatically intensifying this weekend. Day 33 of the federal government shutdown. Federal food assistance benefits halted this weekend, impacting some 700,000 Wisconsinites. $114 million a month in federal funds for food share in Wisconsin alone.
Friday afternoon, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to use emergency funds to help continue paying for federal food assistance, including food share here in Wisconsin. But it's not enough to cover a full month for SNAP nationwide, so benefits will likely both be delayed and reduced. The judge ordering the administration to report back on its progress tomorrow, just as the impact is being felt here in Wisconsin. We'll get to it all. We begin with the Democratic House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Mr. Leader, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Let's begin here. Both sides, as you well know, are seeming incredibly dug in at this point. More Wisconsinites now starting to feel the impact. How much pain are you allowing for this to go before Democrats would ever consider supporting now a clean funding resolution?
Well, our view from the very beginning as Democrats has been we want to reopen the government. We want to enact a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the people of Wisconsin and the people of this great country, while at the same time decisively addressing the Republican health care crisis, where we've seen Republicans enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. We know hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers are closing all across the country because of what happened in that one big ugly bill. And now, unfortunately, Republicans are refusing to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and that's going to result in tens of millions of Americans, including many people throughout Wisconsin, experiencing dramatically increased health care premiums that will be unaffordable.
So to negotiate that point blank, is there any scenario you would back a clean funding resolution?
Well, we've said from the beginning that a bipartisan spending bill requires Republicans to sit down with Democrats to reopen the government. But unfortunately, during this shutdown, Republicans have actually refused to have a conversation with us as Democrats. And all we've asked for is to try to find common ground so we can improve the lives of the American people in an environment where the cost of living has been way too high for far too many people. We know that Donald Trump promised to lower the high cost of living on day one, but unfortunately, costs aren't going down, they're going up. These are issues that the American people understandably want the Congress to address, but in order for that to happen, we have to enter into a bipartisan negotiation.
So no scenario you would support a clean funding resolution?
Well, in our view, a clean spending bill requires Republicans drop their refusal to continue to gut the health care of the American people.
So, Leader, your goal is to bring Republicans to the table here to extend Obamacare subsidies. Is it fair to say that at this point that strategy is just not working?
I think it's fair to say that tens of millions of people across the country who have been receiving notices over the last few weeks consistently have communicated with the Congress. This is both Democrats and Republicans across the country making it clear that we need to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most conservative Republicans in the Congress, has made clear that this is a real issue. It's going to impact her constituents. We know, in fact, that the 5 states that will be most impacted by the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits are Republican-held states. So this is not a partisan fight for us. It's a fight for the people of Wisconsin and a fight for the people of the United States of America. working class people, middle class people, and everyday Americans.
This past week, the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services said most people on Obamacare would still have access to plans that cost $50 a month or less, even if the enhanced subsidies aren't extended. Is that reasonable for you?
That's a stone cold lie, and the American people know it, because they are receiving notices as we speak, indicating that if the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire, their premiums are going to increase, in some cases, by $1,000 or $2,000 per month. So this is not a debatable issue. And Republican members of Congress, including Derek Van Orden, are hearing from their own constituents that something needs to be done to address this issue. And unfortunately, Republicans have refused to extend these Affordable Care Act tax credits when more than 90% of the people who receive them make about $63,000 or less. This is a fight for working class Americans in Wisconsin and throughout the country.
When do you plan to talk with Speaker Johnson next, or any Senate leaders?
Speaker Johnson and I had a brief conversation yesterday. We reiterated our openness as Democrats to sit down with him or any Republican, any time, any place, either at the Capitol or we'll go back to the White House in order to negotiate a bipartisan spending agreement that reopens the government, that ends this, Trump shutdown.
If you get that meeting in the coming days with the president or Republican leaders, what are you prepared to concede in negotiations?
Well, again, everything is on the table. And as we've indicated as House Democrats, we look forward to considering anything that emerged from the Senate in good faith in a bipartisan way, as long as it actually is designed to improve the quality of life of the American people in three areas: their health, their public safety, and our economic well-being, in terms of driving down the high cost of living in Wisconsin and throughout America.
So why not just reopen the government, then negotiate health care?
I think the problem with Republicans is that they've repeatedly failed to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. They've voted against it multiple times throughout this year, while at the same period of time enacting the One Big Ugly Bill, which put into place the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. And it's also important to remember on this health care issue that Republicans have voted more than 70 times since 2010 to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And so I think it's reasonable to conclude that if Republicans decided that the wealthiest people in this country, that they're billionaire donors, should benefit from permanent tax breaks, that at this moment in time where the Affordable Care Act tax credits are about to expire, that working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans in Wisconsin and throughout the country should have a similar level of certainty, particularly as we approach open enrollment or in the open enrollment period, and the reality of these massive healthcare premium increases is going to hit people like a rock.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Mr. Leader, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Here's what President Trump said Friday afternoon about meeting with Democrats.
All they have to do is say, let's go, let's open up our country, and everything snaps back into shape. Let them open up the country, and we'll meet. We'll meet very quickly.
Republican Congressman Derek Van Orden testified at the state capitol this past week and talked with reporters about the shutdown.
If this isn't resolved at the federal level and SNAP benefits are running out, should the state step in? Should legislators vote here to open up the money to fill that at the state level?
I would. And I'm also a co-sponsor of a bill to actually fund SNAP. We just got that done yesterday with Marinette Miller Meeks from Iowa. I don't think you guys know this about me, but I was raised in abject rural poverty, and we had food stamps. We actually had a stamp and a card that you went to the grocery store. I had subsidized lunches, government cheese, the whole thing. And so these programs are vital.
Just to tie to food stamps, you don't think the USDA should tap into contingency funds?
I didn't say that, did I? They can't legally do it. Read the paper, read the fine print.
We talked Friday, just before the judge's ruling in the SNAP case.
On the shutdown, Congressman, as we sit here this week, there's a lot of talk about subsidies and the Affordable Care Act. It's a centerpiece of this standoff in terms of the shutdown. If a package, say, came over from the Senate to the House, would you support expanding the subsidies, say, for a year?
Let's be crystal clear. The Democrats in the Senate have voted 14 times to shut down the government. The Democrats in the Senate, including Tammy Baldwin, have voted 14 times to not send $500 million to the state of Wisconsin for rural healthcare infrastructure. So when the Democrats are saying they're in this fight for healthcare, they're simply lying. They've shut down the $50 billion rural healthcare infrastructure package that the Republicans got passed. So when they're saying they're fighting for healthcare, they're lying. So the state of Wisconsin is supposed to get $500 million for rural healthcare infrastructure. And the Democrats specifically wrote that out of their counterproposal. And I'm not voting for that. We had HSHS close in Eau Claire. It's a huge system. We had 700 ladies that had to find different places, including driving to the state of Minnesota to deliver babies. And Tammy Baldwin has voted 14 times to defund that rural healthcare fund. It's absurd.
On the subsidies, do you support extending those?
Here's what I support: opening up the government and letting us get back and actually talk. So I'm not going to be held hostage to these folks. This is a procedural vote. It should have been done already. All of the Democrats have voted for this same package 13 times already. So open up the government and then we'll sit down and we'll talk about anything. It's supposed to be a deliberative body. It's not supposed to be a body where one party is holding the other party hostage.
As you know, on this front, Democrats in the governor's office have said that Wisconsinites across the state could pay hundreds, even thousands of dollars more in Obamacare premiums if the subsidies are not expanded.
Tony Evers wants you to focus on this so that you don't focus on the fact that he was the DPI previous to 2018, and there's over 200 cases since 2018 of Wisconsin school children being groomed and molested by their teachers. That's what he's doing.
Congressman, what do you make of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously a Republican, a member of your party, attacking Republican leaders, as she says, for not addressing rising health care costs?
Hey, you know what? Marjorie and I are very cordial together. We disagree on several different things.
Is this one of them?
Listen, Marjorie and I are friends, and we disagree on a lot of different policy issues.
And so the attacks that she's making on Republican leaders for not addressing rising health care costs, what do you make of that?
That's Marjorie's opinion.
Democrats are criticizing House Republicans for not being in session for the entire shutdown. Here we are, day 33. Is that a fair criticism?
No. Over a month ago, we passed a clean CR. The House Republicans over a month ago passed a clean CR, sent it over to the Senate, and for the first time in American history, a opposition party voted down a clean CR. This is the first time this has ever happened. And remember, gentlemen, this is the same CR that these Senate Republicans voted for 13 times. The difference now is that Chuck Schumer's worried about his job.
So as we wrap here, Congressman, it seems like both sides are entrenched at this point. I mean, how does this come to an end if there are not 5 Democrats in the Senate who vote for this continuing resolution?
How this ends is that the Senate Democrats put the people of the United States of America above their party, period.
And if they don't?
It's up to them, man. Listen, over 30 days ago, the House Republicans passed a clean CR. We sent it over to the Senate, and for the first time in history of the United States, an opposition party voted down a clean CR for political purposes, and it's shameful.
Van Orden was referring to a recent Cap Time story and hearing at the state capitol. State Superintendent Jill Underly criticized for how the state handles allegations of grooming and sexual misconduct in Wisconsin schools. Republican lawmakers are now calling for changes. Underly has disputed some of the reporting.
Coming up, Wisconsin voters on the shutdown. Who's to blame in the pivotal battleground state? Plus the new numbers in the race for governor. Marquette Law School poll director Charles Franklin is standing by next.